And welcome back to another Devy Game Day. I am SC Romero, the Devy Mastermind of the Fantasy Football Universe, here with two special guests to talk to you about the top 25 matchups and players to watch in today's college football. Great matchups today. We have a question I'm going to ask my two guests at the very beginning, but all that right after the intro.
Listen up closely, let the games begin. Top pick sleepers every week I spin. The FF universe here to help you win. The fantasy football universe.
And we're back with another Devy Game Day episode, joined today by two fellow Devy enthusiasts here in my guy Spencer and then JT Holiday, as y'all know him, and with Sleeper as well. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Got a good slate of games. JT?
There you go. I think he has some technical difficulties going on with his camera right now, but we'll bring him back in when he's able to come back in. But yeah, man, I mean, we do have some good games going on. You know, a lot of players to watch. We're getting closer and closer to the end there of what's happening in college football. Before we kick off the matchups, though, I want to ask y'all. Oh, here it goes. Hold on one second here. Well, JT, how you doing, man?
Good, brother. My bad. What's going on, y'all?
Nah, it's all good, dude. I want to ask y'all, you know, right now, Oregon, you know, shout out my Ducks, are number one in the country. But I want to ask y'all, who is the best team in the country right now? Spencer, I want to ask you first.
Ooh, this is a tough one. I mean, I know they just beat them, but I really feel like Ohio State has the most well-rounded team in the country. You know, both sides of the ball, they're very dominant, but your Ducks just beat them in a close one. So hard to say, but they've got a lot of young talent. I think gets better as the year goes on. I think come playoffs, they're going to be a real tough matchup. But, you know, the Ducks, they also are finding their offensive identity. So, you know, but yeah.
Fair. I'll cover it on them after. JT, who do you think? Who's the best team in the country right now?
I mean, I can project and try to, you know, guess, but I mean, realistically, I don't want to take anything away from the Ducks because y'all have earned that top spot, and I think y'all deserve, you know, to be said that y'all are the best team in the country right now. You know, that win over Ohio State was huge, man.
Fair point. The Ducks, you know, I have the OSCFB Nation. I talk about them all the time. They're doing phenomenal things. Don't get me wrong. They definitely grown, you know, and that's something that Coach Lanning and in Oregon has said. You know, growth and you know just building our identity. And he's said it multiple times, like our week one self isn't going to be the same team we are at the end of the season, right? And we're seeing that. They're a team that's consistently progressing. They've had some scares here and there, but at the same time, it's been like, okay, they've gone better and they made the stops when they need to. I think their defense is coming together and it's been a big part. So I do like that take as the Ducks number one. And really until the tape against Ohio State was Denzel Burke. We're going to talk about him today. Just got torched. You know, they were just tearing him up, and he's arguably one of the top defensive backs in the country, and he just got dominated in that game. So a lot of season left to play, but you know, Oregon is number one, and Ohio State still looks good. Georgia looks strong, right? You have LSU coming together. Bama potentially still has a sneaker in there. You right? Miami, Clemson, all these teams that still have opportunity to make a name for themselves still, and especially with the 12-team playoff happening this year, a lot of good stuff can happen. But let's go ahead and get into our games here. And speaking of Denzel Burke, number one is Nebraska at number 4 Ohio State. Ohio State favorite minus 26.5. Nebraska, as y'all know, has top QB in the freshman class and Dylan Raiola, depending on who you're asking. I like Lagway more, but Raiola still looks good. A lot of people have compared him to future Patrick Mahomes. He has that kind of gadget feel, the good throws. He has a strong arm, has some good wide receivers. They have a former Oregon Duck and Dante Dowdle there. In Ohio State, you know, what's not to talk about? You know, for like Spencer said, top to bottom, both sides of the ball, they have playmakers that can make things happen and change the tide of a game at any given second. But JT, let's start with you. What's your thoughts on this game?
Well, I mean, honestly, Nebraska, you know, the last couple of weeks, they just look like they've you know, definitely run into some bumps in the road, I'd say. A lot of young talent. So, you know, obviously you're going to have some hiccups, you know, with young kids. Matt Rule's building something there, but I expect Ohio State to kind of, you know, come in and run right over them. I like the future for Nebraska. I like what they're doing, but they're not going to be able to stop the run in this game. I think Ohio State runs all over them.
For sure. Spencer, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree. I like what Raiola is doing. He looks, especially for a true freshman, coming in big time matchups, he looks great. But as JT said, we got some bumps in the road, some big bumps these last few weeks. In Ohio State, I think, it's going to be the Judkins and Henderson show.
Yeah.
I didn't see Peoples come off and rip some off. So, I don't think they'll have to throw in the second half if they don't want to.
Yeah, they, speaking of Nebraska bumping the road, last week they got towards, was it Indiana, who they just like bought 40 points, and I don't think they put up 20 in that game. But it's Raiola looks good, but I think we're starting to see those freshman hiccups, right? And the future looks bright, right? And this year, it wasn't expected for them to, really be where they're at right now either, so it's really good that what they're doing. But as every freshman, it's like, okay, yeah, you're a freshman, we're seeing that, right? So I think the defense can come up. Like I said, Denzel Burke needs to show out. They know they have a great wide receiver in Nebraska and Isaiah Neora, and the field stretcher and Jamal Banks that can definitely take advantage of Burke. And maybe if they can take advantage of him like Oregon did, maybe that's a way that they can sneak in. But I think Ohio State should cover this. Especially coming off a bye week, I do believe, for them as well. So they're rested, they're rejuvenated, and they're ready to go. So this one should be Ohio State all day, and Nebraska, I think, is going to continue to go down their season colors, if you will. This one, moments before this Devy GameDay, I saw Des Bryant tweet out that Navy, number 24, upsets Notre Dame, number 12. Notre Dame is favorite, minus 14. This is gonna be interesting. I know Notre Dame is good. Notre Dame they're 6-1, right? They had the hiccup early on against Northern Illinois. They bounced back, but man, this Navy quarterback here in Horvath is doing some great things. He's leading the team. Maybe this is why Notre Dame partially wins, because they just shut him out. But I mean, 880 yards passing, 10 touchdowns, 621 yards on the ground, and 10 touchdowns. That's gonna be the tell the tape for them. If they can stop him, there's a shot. But I mean, Navy hits on all cylinders. They're doing good. Granted, who are they playing? I guess you can say. Riley Leonard looks mid at best. Will Collins, Jeremiah Love, JT. I know that's one of your guys. But you're running backs that you enjoy watching. I think y'all just played a trade for him. If I'm not mistaken, superstars. So we'll start with you, Spencer. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this is a tough one, but I think Blake Horvath is still somehow underrated. As you said, I mean, 10 touchdowns through the air and on the ground. He's kind of having a historic season. I think he should be more seriously talked about as a Heisman candidate. But this is just not your normal military academy season for both Navy and Army, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But Navy especially doing stuff through the air.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that normally. So it's good to see. I think they're going to press Notre Dame. I haven't been impressed by Notre Dame this year. They're tough on defense. Jeremiah Love, I do love him. I just got him off of JT, actually. I paid up big in our C2C league to go get him and Dylan Sampson. So, I love him. He's great. He's going to do good things this game, I think. But I think that Navy could upset here. I definitely don't like the minus 14 spread. I think they at least cover that. But I think Navy could definitely upset Notre Dame today.
JT, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Dez and the X picks on this one, man. It's this whole game's going to come down to run game on both sides, so ball control, and then the turnover battle, so ball security. If either team is putting the ball on the ground, that's going to be the team that ends up losing. I do think Navy pulls out the upset because I'm with Spencer on this one. Notre Dame, besides the running game, just hasn't really been that impressive to me in their wins. They've squeaked out a few. It's been kind of sloppy. Riley Leonard, I know we talked about it last week, but he just hasn't really impressed me at all. I mean, even going back to his time at Duke, I haven't really been big on him. I'm expecting Horvath and Navy to, basically counter the Notre Dame attack and just keep the ball, on the ground, try to control the clock and, play clean football. I think Navy pulls this one off. Fair.
Question before I talk about some Navy guys. Who are you big on at Duke, JT?
Not soulful. Kyrie Irving.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
That's
For
funny.
those that don't know, he's a North Carolina fan, so that was a trick question for him. Um, with Notre Dame, they have some fighters too. But you talk about defense. I mean, let's talk about Navy's linebacker Colin Ramos. This guy's a stud. He actually 68 total tackles is more, almost double than any Notre Dame person right now. Again, just dominating. He had a game where he had 20 total tackles in the game, and he's had 4 with double digits. So he's someone that's gonna get all over the field and just make sure he's closing in and helping his guys bring the ball carriers down. So that could be another tell of the tape if he's able to get after Jeremiah Love and make sure he's not getting any kind of big runs there as well. So I think Navy as general, because they're Navy, we're not talking about them as much. But as Spencer said, Horvath, Ramos, some definitely game changers on their team that can make big plays and change the tide for them as well. The next game, this one's pretty interesting as well because it's Washington at 4-3 versus number 13 Indiana. Indiana favorite -5.5. We've actually been talking about one of their guys in Rourke, Indiana's quarterback, and how we feel about him. I think he's doing some great things. He's looking nice. He's helping them, right? They're 7-0 right now, so the Big Ten is just looking stacked where it's at as far as some competition there. Then you have Elijah Surratt as their wide receiver. Coleman is a running back that's coming out for Washington, and then not to mention another guest on the Devy GameDay show, Denzel Boston. That's Tom Harvey. He keeps talking about him as an underrated guy who just has a lot of talent as well. So this one, I don't know. Is this the way Indiana's first loss? What are your thoughts, JT?
I mean, I could see, and I like Washington a lot. Obviously, we're talking about a program that is kind of operating with the wheels greased right now. The wheels are turning in Washington. They've got young guys coming in to replace that national championship contender last year. They've looked good so far, even at 4-3. Indiana, I don't know, man. Every week they seem to just surprise me, and even when I'm betting against them, they hold it down. So I'm not going to bet against Rourke this week, especially at home. That's 5.5. One touchdown cover. I think Indiana's got this one.
Before we get to you, Spencer, we have a question from L. Smith. Thank you for joining in. Can Michigan State upset Michigan tonight? I think it's very possible, man. This Michigan team just looks very not even mid at this point. They just look like they have a lot of things not going right for them right now. This will be a battle for them. I do like Michigan State as well. Nick Marsh, is a prospect I think we're going to be talking about in 2027 in the draft as well as a wide receiver that I think he could take advantage. The benefit is Michigan has a good defensive line that can shut down the run game completely. If that has to happen and they have to lean on Aiden Childs or whoever is playing at quarterback for Michigan State, that could be a huge for them. Do y'all agree with that though?
Yeah, I mean, Michigan State. Yeah, I think Michigan State could pull this off. Michigan has looked terrible, just downright bad.
Yeah.
Which is what happens when you can't cheat, I guess. All of a sudden, you don't know what's coming. No, it's jokes aside. I mean, really, Michigan State has looked good. Their defense is so tough, and as you said, Nick Marsh is balling. Class of 2027.
Yep.
Whew. If you can get those picks, and you need wide receivers, get those picks.
It's the next wide receiver class.
Yeah, it's going to be 12 straight wide receivers in the first round. No, it's so I think that it could upset. And honestly, as good as Michigan State has looked, it's really more about how bad Michigan has looked.
Right. 100%. That's JT.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Michigan's handing the ball off to Mullings, they should be able to control this with the running game and the defense. But I really want to see. I know you mentioned that Childs. Did you say Childs might not be playing today at quarterback?
No, I said whoever they have at quarterback, but yeah, Childs.
I want to see him because this is obviously a big one. Michigan State, Michigan. That's a huge in-state rivalry. This is a big one for like the alumni and all that kind of stuff. So I really want to see how Childs looks. Against that vaunted Michigan front seven.
For sure. Yeah, that could be a huge test, right? He showed off some good things at Oregon State. He showed off some good things here. He's also had his flaws, so I think this could be a heavy test when the pressure is on him. Well, what are your thoughts here, though, on the Washington Indiana game, Spencer?
So I think Rourke is out today with the thumb injury.
That's true.
Which is unfortunate because his stock was rising up quickly. So Washington is one of those teams that I think they should win this game with Rourke out. I mean, Indiana's played great on both sides of the ball. They're not just their quarterback, but I mean, it's short notice to kind of plan an entire new offense without that. And, they've really won on the back of Rourke and what he's brought. So, but I mean, Washington goes out and beats Michigan one week and then loses to Iowa, with Iowa putting up an unprecedented 40 points. They never do that. Like the next week. So I think they should win, but they're such an inconsistent team, which ties back to all new faces, youth movement.
Yeah.
But I think that they could pull this upset off. It's not what I feel confident about, though.
Yeah, this was, maybe that's the tell of the tape with Rourke. I completely forgot about that injury, and that could be something where it's definitely Washington should be able to do this, right? I mean, we could have Tavion Jackson, I think, coming in as quarterback potentially. But, yeah, that's huge, and that's going to show how big of an impact Rourke is for the team in general. Next one, Battle of the SEC, Oklahoma at Ole Miss, number 18. Ole Miss favorite minus 18.5. Ole Miss has lost 2 of their last 3 games. Those 2 losses, though, were both by 3 points. Oklahoma, they were having some quarterback issues. They went back to Jackson Arnold, and he's looking okay, right? He's can play mid. He has a lot growing to do. But what are y'all's thoughts on this game? I mean, Jackson Dart has looked. He's had his struggles. We know Trey Harris is there. Ole Miss has a solid defense. They can still pull it out and potentially get into the playoff race, but they have to win out really to even make that. But Spencer, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I think Ole Miss should be able to pull this off and cover the spread. Jackson Arnold coming back in. He was just that Oklahoma team has been so inconsistent. They've dealt with so many injuries. I don't think I think this is a lost year, and they just have to focus on developing Jackson Arnold for next year, trying to convince him to stay there, not transfer out. But Ole Miss has put it together. The only thing I'm looking for, I don't know if either of you guys know this. I know Trey Harris was dealing with an injury this week. It was one of those like undisclosed, questionable to play, which means either he's got like a bruise on his toe or he broke his leg, and that's just how college reporting works on these injuries. I
shall see.
This offense, they run through Harris. But if he's able to play even at 50%, they should cover this spread. Ole Miss should walk away with this one easily.
Thoughts? It says game time decision right now. Just looking up Trey Harris right now. But thoughts, JT?
Yeah, I mean, as far as Oklahoma, their offenses looked lost, honestly. Just the play call. It's not even just the quarterback play. Obviously, Nick Anderson's been out all season, but the play calling, it's just, if you're watching some of their games, you'll see just very questionable decision-making, from the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, though, Oklahoma's been really good this year. So that's where I kind of look at this with Ole Miss's struggles the last couple weeks, and I'm like, I expect Ole Miss to win this game, but 18.5 is pretty big spread. I'd look at maybe 10 to 14. So I don't think Ole Miss covers the spread here, even though I do think they win.
Even with Trey Harris, especially like you mentioned, being a game time decision. I mean, I have him as the wide receiver 3 right now in the class. I think he's doing phenomenal things. I think he can hit every mark. He has solid route runnings, has the speed there. Dart has moved down in my rankings. My quarterback rankings are in a skew right now, to be honest. Just with everything happening with Quinn Ewers, Beck looking god awful. Not awful. He looks like, all right, you're a quarterback, but I don't know if you're a franchise quarterback at that next level, right? So Dart, same thing, it's just, again, just going crazy. That's a whole nother topic, though, for him. Oklahoma, you hit on it. I mean, they have what I think might be the only linebacker taken in the first round. And that's going to be, Danny Stutzman at Oklahoma, right? He's a solid run stopper. He gets to the lanes quickly. He closes in. So that can be a huge tell for Henry Parrish on Miss's side, just making sure they're going one-dimensional and they're forcing Dart to throw. If Trey Harris is out, who steps up in that sense? On the other side, though, as you mentioned, horrible play calling for Oklahoma, Deion Burks is their leading wide receiver. He's missed games, and he's their leading wide receiver with just over 200 yards. So it's like they don't really have the playmakers, or they're not, like you said, just utilizing and calling the shots for their playmakers to make some big plays. So that's really huge for them as well. Here's a question here. not gonna try to pronounce the name. I apologize. But any advice on who to start shit for tomorrow? Ask us the questions. We'll answer them for sure here for you. So whatever your roster is, let us know. We'll answer them for you. But also we have our live start shit show tomorrow. Every about an hour before kickoff, we're live to FF Universe. Some of us guys are together, so you can also tune in there. Make sure you're subscribing so you know when we're going live. But that's going to be big from Ole Miss. Again, needs to win out. They have Georgia still later in the year, so they just need to win out if they want their playoff hopes. They're probably going to get a bowl game, but they need some time there. Next,
One thing real quick, sorry, on Stutzman, just because you mentioned him, dude, every time I see that guy, doesn't he just the neck roll, everything? He brings back that classic 90s middle linebacker. Like, love that guy. I'm really excited to see him.
That's so spoiler. It's not a spoiler because I kind of posted on X-Ray, but I think Cowboys take him in the first round. I think I know people are like, oh, they'll get a running back.
And linebacker
be real.
At the first is tough.
Be real though. It's Jerry Jones. He's not going to go after and get a running back there. He's going to wait day 2 or something like that. I just think they go after him as the top linebacker and they just try to get something new for that defense, especially with all the Parsons things going on. Maybe Parsons isn't there next year, so they're going to need someone in that middle for him. But they have Overshown, former Texas guy
looks
too.
Great right now too.
So.
Yeah.
That's very possible, but that's my take. Is I think he goes there. Speaking on top teams, though, Illinois number 20 at Oregon number 1. Oregon favorite minus 22.5. So to tell the tape here, we're going to talk about Jeanty a little bit later because I have some things to say about Heisman's. But the tell the tape is Oregon's defense has turned it around. They are not the same defense that we saw at the very beginning of the season. They're really not the same offense. The offense is coming more in stride. They're protecting Gabriel a lot better, which is huge. The Fighting Illini, though, are looking really strong as well. 6-1. This is a huge match for them to go out there and do it. Luke Altmaier doing some great things as well. 1,500 yards passing, 65% completion, 15 touchdowns, 1 interception. Caden Fegan, we know, can be a threat, too, at the running back position. So they have some things that can go well for them. I just think Oregon's defense is going to be a reason why they contend for a national championship because the defense is hitting on all cylinders. We don't even have the best lineman that we had going in, Jordan Birch. He's been hurt. So who stepped up? We've had Mateo Ugalele, brother of DJ, stepping up. He's doing some great things right now. The defensive backs, Nico Reed, who was even, let's say, talked about a lot during the offseason, is stepping up and closing down on wide receivers. Not to mention Jabbar Muhammad, Jeffrey Bassa. Their tackling's getting better. Everything, Oregon is clicking on all cylinders. They need to get better in the red zone. That's their only struggle. So if they can't score in the red zone, that's going to be huge in national championship competition. But I think Oregon should carry this. What are your thoughts here, JT?
I expect Oregon to win this game. The thing I'm looking forward to most is, a guy that we've talked about, a guy you just mentioned, and Luke Altmaier. We talk about him as an interesting C2C guy, a guy that you look at as a possible NFL draft prospect. This one you can circle. This is the game right here that's going to be all over his NFL draft film. How does he look in this game at Oregon against a defense that's gotten better and better every week?
Right.
This is a big one for Altmaier. And, Pat Bryant, he's got a senior receiver out there that's a big body that, he obviously has a good connection with. So I want to see Altmaier, really execute in this game on the road and try to keep it close. This will be a good one for his, his prospect profile. So,
what are your thoughts?
Yeah, as you said, this is kind of going to be the Altmaier's defining game. I have him kind of like as a day 3 flyer guy, but if he shows out, he could sneak his way into day 2.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, this game is going to be about what Oregon does. It should be a chance for Gabriel to maybe show off some deep shots. We really need to see he had his first completion over 20 yards finally last week or 2 weeks ago. And he can do it. It's something he can do. But that's a quarterback that I want him to raise his stock more because he's looked great short intermediate, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But he hasn't tried to go deep, and I would love to see that. But Jordan James is really who I'm watching. Mm-hmm. I love Jordan James as a running back. This class is fully loaded, but Jordan James he's a tough physical runner. He runs angry. Like I watch him play, he reminds me of Pacheco on the Chiefs there, where he just every run he gives it 100% effort. He's plowing forward. So But there's a lot of names to watch in this game. Tez Johnson, I think, is a day 2 guy. He looks like a really dynamic player, fits the NFL. Um, Evan Stewart finally showing out a little bit. So I just hope that Oregon kind of keeps the momentum. I think they should cover this spread just because of how good they are as a team. And Illinois is good, but they're not anywhere near Oregon's level. And I think so, taught you asked. Finally, we got the start sit question. If you want to put that up.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're gonna get to that here in just a sec. Here, I agree with everything y'all said, though. I mean, these are games with Outmire, where it's not about winning or losing. Of course, if you win, you definitely elevate. But also, like you just said, showing out, right? When you know the national coverage is on you, I would say a smaller school, but you're not as big or big as Oregon, right? So this is your chance to go out there and be, ball out because national eyes are on you. So this can just go out. If he goes out and has a great game and still loses, that's still good if he doesn't throw any interceptions or anything like that, right? So I love that take there. But you are right, Spencer. The start sit question did come in. I have 3 running backs. I'm not sure who to start or sit. I'll change Swift or Dobbins. They come on to say we need 2 guys here. Spencer, thoughts?
I go Dobbins and HN pretty easily for me. The Saints defense just isn't what they used to be. They're a lot older. They're not covering the run very well. I think running backs, they're what, 26th or 27th against running backs this year in FPPR. So Dobbins hasn't looked great. He's started to maybe show that, like James Robinson, you come out strong off of the Achilles surgery and then you start to lose it. And but he's also a very good running back. He knows how to play the position, and this is a great matchup for him. So even a little hobbled, even a little step lost, I think he's going to probably get into the end zone this week. He might even break off like a half decent run, maybe 20, 30 yards. But and then HN with Tua back, I expect him to fully blow up and have a good shot. He's going to be a plug and set and forget guy rest of the season, so long as, knock on wood, Tua's health holds up. Swift is fine. I like a flex, but he's so inconsistent. It's really hard to know what he's going to do, and I feel really good about those 2 guys this week.
JT, different thoughts or same thoughts?
Fairly similar. I mean, I'm right there with you on A-Chain. I think, set and forget type guy, especially with Tua in the lineup. I have Swift over Dobbins this week just because, Spencer nailed it with Dobbins. The last few weeks, you've seen the efficiency, decline week after week. And that's just something you see with, post Achilles. Swift has really looked good over the last month or so. He's kind of been awesome. So obviously any week he could have a dud because that's the Swift we're used to. But I don't know. Chicago seems to be gelling right now. The offense is getting better. They're coming off a bye week, so I'm expecting Caleb to be even sharper. I'm starting Swift over Dobbins this week.
Fair enough. I actually have Chain right now at 13, Swift at 14, and Dobbins at 17. Y'all hit on with Chain, especially if Tua is back. That whole offense, Tua is back. I don't wait for it to start the offense. Like, I know there's, I've seen people bench Waddle, I've seen people bench Hill these past couple of weeks, but with Tua's back, I mean, even Tyreek Hill came on and say, you start that, we're running the train up here, whatever he said. So you're starting him. Austin too. I'm starting Mostert too, right? I think that's a good one as well if you have him. Swift, it comes out to the matchup at Washington. Washington's defense is vulnerable. They can give up big plays. Swift is a good pass catching back as well. Caleb Williams probably has a game. The wide receivers are probably the better starts. But with Dobbins, New Orleans just can't be a stout defense. They can stop him as well. And as y'all mentioned, he's just being a little bit more inconsistent. So I was saying earlier he's a sell high candidate. I think right now you try to, package Dobbins in with someone and try to upgrade that running back position for you as well. Maybe go out there and get a David Montgomery. If you can, I would get Pollard right now. But those are some picks I would think you should try to trade in for just because he looks good. I know they don't really have much outside of him. Maybe you can throw in Cavani Vidal if he gets the snap share. I think he could do good, but he needs that. So right now, if you can, I go get rid of Dobbins there for you. Appreciate the questions there. Again, sorry, I'm not going to. Sosa taught you, I guess is how you say it.
Nice.
I was, overthinking. Sometimes you don't need to overthink it, but appreciate you asking questions. Sosa taught you. We're always here for you.
One thing I wanted to touch on real quick with the Dylan Gabriel thing that Spencer mentioned with the deep balls. So what I noticed last week when he was getting Stewart involved, he looks a lot like the way you take deep shots, like the way Dak Prescott does. He doesn't have the arm strength to do it. It's all about like Chad Pennington, where it's about the play call. You know, you're throwing the ball when they're 25, 30 yards down the field, and then they're taking it the rest. You know, that's how the deep shots kind of work. So, I mean, really, it's just about the creative play calling with Oregon, you know, getting those shots in the 25 to 35 range where he can hit them on the money, you know?
And I've said it before with I mean, Dan Lanning. We saw a lot more of Ohio State. He hasn't opened up that full playbook. I think he's being smart. He's like, we're gonna get to the playoffs and we're gonna wait till we get there because we've seen times where it's the Ches Johnson show. Then we've seen times where it's Evan Stewart. Against Ohio State, we saw it was both of them. Purdue, they didn't even need to do that. People are like, "Oh, Purdue, watch out for them." They blew out Purdue. That was embarrassing. But you know, it's like they're opening up the playbook more and more with what's his name? I'm trying to blank. Gabriel, excuse me. You know, you're talking about Spencer, those deep shots against Ohio State, those deep balls, 20 plus yards, 4 for 4. So that was granted on the Ohio State secondary, not necessarily coming to, but that's just showing again they're opening up the playbook a little bit more, and it comes down to the protection. You know, the line is getting better at protecting Gabriel, and when that's there, he's feeling good. He's not, you know, kind of folding under that pressure. He's actually saying, all right, I trust my guys. They're protecting me. I can wait and then take these shots for my wide receivers to get down there as well. Because when Evan Stewart's rolling, I mean, he's rolling. Let's just say that. Let's go on to our next one. I guess the surprise team in the Big 12 here. BYU at 11 at UCF. UCF -2.5 though. As y'all know, we have a UCF guy in RJ Harvey who looks really great. You know, possibly a top 10 back, if not possibly a top 5, to be honest. He just looks phenomenal in what he does when the ball's in his hands. Redsliff from BYU, he's looked good, right? 16 touchdowns, also throws 7 interceptions, so you know there's some controversy in what he can do there. And then we have Kobe Hudson, UCF wide receiver, 503 yards, 3 touchdowns. This one's interesting. Like, UCF has lost some games, right? They're 3-4. But I still like the talent that they have. Like I said, RJ Harvey, I really love him. He's a great running back. I think he's going to be the sleeper that you can get in your 3rd, maybe 4th rounds because he's at UCF and we're not one of your bigger programs, right? So he might be like a day 4 pick, but that's the guy I'm targeting personally. But what are y'all's thoughts here? Because UCF or BYU is rolling at 7-0 in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll take it. So BYU, gosh, I hate watching them win. Because you just look at all the players on the field and you're like, not one of these guys. I mean, Retzlaff certainly has his moments.
Thanks for joining in, Ken.
Appreciate you, Ken. Not one of their players is a standout. Oh, this is a first rounder. I mean, they don't even have their like Zach Wilson or Puka Nacua. Like, it's just working, and they're just a good football team, well coached, play hard, make plays when they matter, and that's sort of who Retzlaff is. I think he's a perfect college quarterback for them. I don't think that there's Devy potential, and as you said, UCF has 2 outstanding weapons in RJ Harvey and Kobe Hudson. I really like Kobe Hudson just because of what he's been able to do. I think quarterback play has been pretty subpar, and he's managed to ball out pretty consistently. RJ Harvey has driven through a line that lets him down often. So those are 2 great players. I just don't know if it's enough to overcome a great football team like BYU.
Fair. JT?
Yeah, I mean, UCF, you know, y'all nailed it on the head with the weapons. The quarterback play has been hit or miss. You know, they benched KJ Jefferson, went to Ja'Carry Brown. The offense scored a lot last week, but they couldn't stop, you know, anybody. They were terrible on defense. BYU, I think Spencer nailed it. It's one of the most well-coached teams in the country. And they have been for a few years now. They're just very disciplined on both sides of the ball. I think BYU wins this game. So as far as covering, I'm betting against the spread there. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say about UCF. They're weird because I want to bet on them. I really like their offense. They just, week to week, they're either not moving the ball or their defense can't stop anyone. So I can't bet on them to win this one.
And against SMU, they won by 3, 18-15. That was in week 2. Against Oklahoma State, they won by 3, 38-35. So it's like, all right, those tougher competitions. Oklahoma State, I guess, isn't tough, but still, that's it. But then against Kansas State, who was ranked number 13 at the time, they beat them 38-9. So they've had But outside those 3-point games, they're blowing out every other team just about. So again, just really coach everything's working right now. And it's the defense. I think the defense has been very stout in shutting down guys, and that could be the telltale with RJ Harvey and what he can do. If he can bust open those big plays, that's where UCF comes out and win. But right now, I mean, BYU, UCF, Utah, Kansas, Arizona State, then Houston to close it out. I mean, they're at Utah next week, so maybe that's the question. But I mean, BYU is probably going to win out the Big 12. I know a lot of people like Colorado. They may have to play Colorado in the championship, and maybe that's something different. But I mean, this is a team that is rolling and doing some great things. So it's excited to see that. And again, maybe not Devy potential, more CFF potential here, but still fun to watch them go out there and do their thing and just be undefeated right now. So
Next week at Utah, man, if Isaac Wilson's starting for Utah, that'll be fun. You'll get the little brother going against his big brother's alma mater. So that'll
there you
be,
go.
See some sideline trash talk. I guarantee Zach Wilson will be there.
Oh yeah, that'll be fun to watch. That'll be fun. And then I mean that could be until he goes in there and says, "Look, man, y'all should have took me too, but y'all didn't, so I'm here now." Next one though we have is going to be Missouri number 21 at Alabama number 15. Alabama favorite minus 15 and a half here. Alabama has really struggled the past couple of weeks, right? They've just looked they look good, right? But then they had their win against Georgia, and it was like, okay, this is a team that's coming out. But now they've lost 2 games. Well, they lost their first one, right? It was week. Let me go to a schedule. And they just look struggled. Like Milroe hasn't looked good. Again, lost 2 out of 3. That loss against Vanderbilt, right, was huge. And Vanderbilt's now ranked. We'll talk about them in a little bit. South Carolina, they won by 2, and then they lost to Tennessee. Really some inconsistency here. I think it's Milroe has looked good. He's struggled. Ryan Williams, they've been able to close him. He's still been one of their leading wide receivers. Their running game isn't as strong as we've seen Alabama in the past. Their defense does look good, but it is beatable as we've seen, especially against like Vanderbilt. It's like, wow, that they beat them. So that's huge for them. Missouri, another person. We talked about Luther Burden. I mean, my quarterback rankings all on askew. My wide receivers are too. I still have Luther Burden as my wide receiver 1, but that's he's not doing that. This is where it comes into not necessarily looking at the stats, right? To say, okay, let's see what he's doing on it. Is it Brady Cook? Burden's still doing great things. I think he could do excellent things at the next level, but he's not necessarily doing what he did last year, which is a downgrade. He's doing worse. So a lot of things to question here. This is not where I expected these 2 teams to be. Actually, at this point in the season. But Spencer, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so I think Brady Cook is going to be out for this game also. So a few quarterback injuries, but Pine has looked a little bit better than Brady Cook at times. So it'll be, I don't think it's a huge downgrade for them at quarterback. As you said, though, Burden, I really want to see him show out because Weiss is still kind of like outperformed him. And Weiss is a good wide receiver, but he's not anywhere near Burden's talent level, so it shouldn't really be that close. As for Alabama, Milroe is. I almost think that he's just a better coach, Joe Milton. Like he's got all the tools in the world to pop off, and he looks great at times. He's got better touch than Milton, obviously, but it's all tools right now, and the inconsistency is going to keep driving down his draft stock. I still have him as my QB1 of the class. I'm not confident about that, and that's really just because I don't have really any like high-end first-round quarterbacks. Cam Ward is pushing, of course, but he's another guy, inconsistent. I know you talk about that all the time. So, but yeah, the Alabama just doesn't look the same. I think DeBoer is going to get too much hate for what was actually Saban's issue of not going to the portal and not recruiting enough. They're just reaping a little bit of not using NIL for a couple years there.
Fair. Jalen Monroe is not a first-round quarterback. JT, go ahead. Your thought. I'll say more after that, but I want to hear what JT has to say.
Well, I mean, as far as this matchup is concerned, both of these defenses have been weird. They'll have really good weeks where they keep their opposition under 10 and they just look dominant, and then they'll have other weeks where it's a shootout and it's 38-35 or so I don't know what, I want to say that it's going to be Alabama's defense shutting down Missouri, who's, had problems at quarterback. But This is a tough one, man. I think Alabama wins this one. I don't know what to say about their defense because their defense has been so hit or miss this season. And that's really what I think it boils down to for them. If their offense is sitting on the sideline for, 40 minutes of the game, Missouri can, really keep this close. So
Right now, Missouri is 6-1. Right, Missouri can afford to lose this game. I think either way, I think these teams are out the playoffs. However, Alabama, they have to win because next week they go to Death Valley. Next week they have LSU at LSU. So for Alabama to get in the playoffs, they need to win out though. Like they can't lose here and then lose next week. I mean, either way, three teams, three losses. There's no way they get in the playoffs. So really, they have to win. At least in my sense. I mean, who knows? SEC, competition. They can always still sneak in. But either way, this is a game. It's at Alabama, so they if they lose, I mean, you just kiss it goodbye at that point, right? You got to start fresh and say, okay, what are we doing for next year at this point in time as well. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see. It could be a tell to defenses, as you mentioned. I think 15.5 is too big. Like, I don't think Missouri is that weak on offense to not put up the points. Alabama could score on the Missouri defense, but I don't think Alabama's defense is that great. Like you mentioned, the inconsistencies where Missouri is going to be able to put up points to close that gap. But I'll take Alabama because it is at Alabama here for them. But next week, as we talked about, a team that upset them. Texas, number 5 at Vanderbilt, 25. Texas favorite minus 17.5. This is a huge one simply because the Texas quarterback room, as I mentioned, my quarterback rankings are in the slew, right? Quinn Ewers was my one. I was liking what he was doing. It was like, man, he's feeling more confident in the pocket. He's making plays. He's moving around. He's making throws. Fantastic. And then they go to Georgia, and it's just a whole. It's like, okay, let me go back and make sure who they've been playing, because when they go to Georgia, he just looked like he was a freshman. He just looked like it was his first time on the field. The best thing was, though, they put in Arch, who was like, okay, this is Arch's show now. Let's time to put in Arch here. They put in Arch, and Arch struggled as well. And then they went back to Ewers in the second half. So it's just like they have the future ready. I know we've talked about Ewers going, potentially transferring out because there's no way he's staying at Texas, but he could possibly transfer out, have another year of eligibility, and stay again. I don't think that's smart because next year, I believe, is the class of the quarterbacks. What are y'all's thoughts here? Vanderbilt, I mean, I know they're ranked number 25. To my knowledge, there's not anyone really like Devy. They're going to be an upset team that could probably ruin Texas's dreams of competing, but sorry, Vandy, I just don't see much on the roster as far as saying like, okay, here we are. Here's a top prospect to be watching out for. But what are your thoughts here on just the matchup and the quarterbacks, JT?
Well, I mean, so much for my lock of the week last week, right? Complete swing and a miss on that one. But I mean, watching that game last week, there were multiple moments where I felt like that famous Dennis Green post game interview where they are who we thought they were. It's like I'm watching Ewers and I'm like, all right, this is the same guy I've seen for 2 years. I knew he wasn't a first round prospect, So I don't know. We'll see if he bounces back. He's been a hard one for me to buy into for a couple years now. There's just too many little flaws that stand out that could become big, holes in the road, I guess you can say. But Vandy, don't sleep on Cedric Alexander. Their running back is really good. I like him a lot. I think he's legit. And, they're a weird team. Like you said, they've already beat Bama this year. So, I don't know. If they can control the ball with Alexander, I'm not saying they're going to beat Texas, but, Texas's quarterback play has been weird. I don't think it's on Stark. Stark's a really creative play caller. He's going to get his guys in, opportune positions to make plays. We might see over the next few weeks, similar to that Clemson year, where I was the guy that was starting as a senior when T-Law took over. And he was pretty good too. He was winning them games. He just wasn't explosive. And then they went to T-Law midway through the year. They ended up winning the Natty. So we'll see over the next few weeks, depending on what the UT offense looks like, but you could see a slow transition to Arch, being the starter down the stretch.
Spencer, thoughts?
Yeah, I think Texas should win this game, but as you said, yours. I mean, I've said on here repeatedly, and in general, I don't like the guy. Um, I just he's so inconsistent, and I don't think he actually has special physical traits. Like he's fine, accurate in the short intermediate area, but what's really the difference between him and a Dylan Gabriel, outside of Ewers kind of like had hype coming in, more hype. I think Arch showed me actually good special physical traits this year. I think he would elevate that room just in terms of their potential. Whereas Ewers is kind of limiting them, and I think we saw. I think last week Bond was out. Bond's out again. He's clearly their most special player in that wide receiver room right now. Brian Wingo is still a true freshman. He can't step up all the way. Helm is a good tight end, but he's not offering much after the catch. Without those special weapons, I don't think Ewers can elevate the offense. For Vandy, they're good, as you said, Cedric. But I actually really like Eli Stowers. He's a little undersized at tight end. He doesn't have the weight you want to see, but he's been electric with the ball in his hands this year. I think he's over 400 receiving yards. So 33 for 463. I think he could be a tight end, maybe just sort of a later, like a day 3 tight end that has some athleticism. But I kind of want to see if he puts on some weight for the combine. He could be a name to watch out for this year.
That's fair. I mean, Vanderbilt has a chance to come out here and just ruin dreams the remainder of the schedule. They had a bad loss against Georgia State early on, then they lost to Missouri, and now they've been on a 3-game win streak. They have Texas at Auburn versus South Carolina, at LSU versus Tennessee. So they have a chance to just upset some of these teams and just ruin their college football playoffs at the end of the season, which, for college football, it'd be fun to see just because it causes chaos, right? If all these teams just end up losing to Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt sneaks into the playoffs as a 2-team loss. You never know. Well, it'll be fun to watch, though. Quarterbacks, I mean, it's interesting because you want to see Ewers go out there and ball, right? But at the same time, if they end up losing again, I think you go into Arch. I think it makes sense to, because of 2 lost teams just makes it harder. They can, even a blowout loss like they did against Georgia, it's like you can argue, okay, it's Georgia. I mean, Georgia's the number 2 team in the country, right? So you can kind of scratch that off and be like, okay, it was a top team. That's not that bad. But they have to win out, right? To just show, okay, we are dominant, and maybe Georgia just caught them on their bad week. It happens all the time. So that'll be something to watch, that progression for Texas. The defense didn't look so great either, though, against a Georgia offense that, again, has looked kind of mid. So, I mean, that was huge and concerning as well, not just the offense, but the defense. They were dominating the beginning of the season, every game prior to that Georgia game, and then they just let up, and so that's huge to watch there too. Next one here, the Battle of Florida. Florida State at Miami, number 6. Miami favorite -21. I know we talked about Cam Ward. I think, JT, you have him as first-round prospect. Spencer, you're saying he's rising your board to be the potential first-round prospect as well. I've mentioned I love Cam Ward. It's the inconsistency because we've seen him do it at the front half of the season. It's in the second half now, and he's continuing to still do it, which is great. This kid, I think, has the best work ethic out of the quarterbacks in this class. I mean, he truly is someone that I don't think he takes anything for granted, in the sense that I think he puts in the work because he knows, hey, this is my chance to change my life, really, right? Change wherever he grew up from, just change the outcome of his trajectory, right? And just say, look, I have control of my destiny. I need to go out there and ball. I need to go out there and put in the work. He has the team behind him. Players love to play with him. He's kind of like almost a Jameis Winston to me as far as the locker room hype. I feel the team just is excited to play with him, which is something you want in a quarterback. They just want to go out there and do their best for him, and he's making it fun for Miami. This has been the best we've seen Miami in so many years, and Cam Ward because of that. Florida State, we saw with the hiccup last year, missing the playoffs and then the 4-round playoffs. And then now they're just not looking anything near great. What are y'all's thoughts here? Start off, Spencer.
Yeah, this should be a blowout. It shouldn't even be close, especially all the contention around. I mean, teams want to beat Florida State this year because of how much they were, just crying about not getting into the playoffs last year. Then the playoffs are reformatted. They're like, oh, now you can't keep us out. Well, I don't think they're going to struggle keeping you out this year. It's not even a decision. So I think Miami should blow up this game. I think all kind of 4 of their like premium weapons are going to pop off. We finally saw Damon Martinez start to show a little bit of something. I don't know if he was dealing with injury early in the year or if he just needed to get into the flow of the offense or if it was just a blip. But he looked really good last week. So I mean, I would expect another maybe like 50-point effort from Miami today. Florida State has nothing. They're losing recruits left and right. It's not looking good down there.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, yeah, Miami's going to put a 50 burger on them. It's not even just the talent discrepancy. These two schools hate each other. There's such a long last. I mean, this is North Carolina Duke. This is Ohio State Michigan. This is big time. That Miami wants to embarrass the Seminoles for sure, and they're going to. I think. Cam Ward. Honestly, when you were talking about comparisons, just mental makeup. I'm not talking about physical traits, but just mental makeup. The guy he reminds me of a lot is Baker Mayfield, man. He's always the underdog. In his head, he's the underdog in everything. The incarnate word to Wazoo to now Miami. Baker Mayfield being a walk-on at 2 different schools. It's just he seems to always see himself as that underdog, and I think that's what gives him that competitive spirit in basically everything he does. And I like that. I think that was one of the selling points for Baker Mayfield for me when he was coming out was the fact that I knew he was always going to compete. Cam Ward's that dude, man. He's going to compete no matter what. So, yeah, I love him. He's my QB2 right now in this class. I think he's a, surefire top 10 pick. So, Miami, puts up a 50 burger and they embarrass the Seminoles today.
Do you think Miami still be ranked higher than 6 right now?
That's tough, man. I mean, they can beat anybody in the nation, but their defense has so many holes that it's just they're a team that they could be upset by some bad teams, on any given week just because they can't stop anyone. So I think 6 is a good spot for them. I could see them as low as 8 and as high as 3, so right there in that range is good.
What do you think, Spencer?
Yeah, Louisville really pushed them last week, and Louisville is obviously the best team in the country, beating the BC last night. No, but like Louisville, they're a good team, but they're not a great team, and that game was played real close. Their defense is going to hold them back if they can't figure it out. The offense, as JT said, they can beat anybody at any given moment with that offense. I mean, they have literally 2 weapons that I love, 3 real good weapons in the receiving room, 4 if you count Arroyo.
I love Arroyo. Yeah,
Arroyo is also a great weapon. So you have 4 premium receiving options. Cam Ward is throwing to in Restrepo, Horton, Sam Brown, and Arroyo. So I mean, I think those are all Devy names to watch. They've really kind of come out lately, and I think that keeps them from beating. But I don't think above 6. 6 feels right. I have a question on Florida State, though. I was thinking about this. Do you think Hook stays, or do you think he transfers?
I think if that NIL's there, he's going to transfer. I think because right now that spot's his, right, next year. So yeah. I think he has to be guaranteed a starting spot somewhere to be able to transfer, which is possible. But I think right now he stays because, I mean, the offense is his next year, right? So it's a whole different story now. And now it's like, okay, it's my shot. It's not DJU. I'm not coming in to pick up scraps. It's like it's just my team and stuff. So I think right now he stays, even if they lose out. I think he stays.
Yeah, and I don't think he was recruited to start as a true freshman, so I don't think he's been disappointed in the fact that he's not playing. This is the coaching staff in Norville that recruited him specifically. I think the NIL at Florida State has to be pretty hefty. That's one of the richer schools in the country. So, I think he stays. You'd expect them to recruit well and kind of put a decent offense around him next year, but we'll see,
Yeah, they're hemorrhaging recruits. I was almost thinking maybe Miami with Cam Ward going would swoop in.
Yeah,
Miami. Yeah. I'm gonna look this up. I feel like Miami has a quarterback coming in, but I could be wrong.
They do. I just don't know if he's recruited to start.
On defense, just side two, you talk about Miami's defense. They just got Ruben Bain back as well over the past couple of weeks, and he's someone off the edge that can help generate pressure for them. He's been battling with some injuries there as well. And then Restrepo, I mean, I'm glad y'all brought him up because he's actually one of my top 24 prospects for your drafts. So I would take him, in the second there. But I like what Restrepo does as well, man. He's almost in that Ricky Purcell set where he's just
perfect comparison. You nailed that.
yeah, I mean, just he has the hands, he has smooth route running, and he could definitely work from anywhere on the field. I think they're using him just like Purcell, right, in the sense of college football. On Florida State side, I mean, someone that really has been I hope he transfers out, man, because he just hasn't found it here. It's Akeem Williams. That was someone I was really big on as a freshman. Big guy, kind of reminds you as that physical Julio Jones type of receiver. And he just hasn't panned out. Maybe it's, I don't know if it's just him not doing stuff in practice or what it may be. It just hasn't been the same. So I hope he gets another opportunity to go out there and find something else for them as well. Next one here, though, Penn State number 3 at Texas A&M number 14. Texas A&M, man, has one of the best defenses, I feel like, at least the front seven in the nation. They have Nick Gordon, they have Tareen York, they have Samar Turner. They are doing some great things here. This is going to be a tale to tape because Penn State, I know we talk about Quinshon and Travion Henderson. Penn State has arguably the best running back duo in the nation, though, with Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. So the front seven versus the big two backs. I know you have Drew Allar. I know, JT, you believe the NFL scouts like Drew Allar more than what we might like him as people that watch the game and stuff. I say watch the game because part of me doesn't believe scouts watch full games. So, but I think this is a really huge matchup. What these two running backs could do versus this front seven of A&M. If front seven A&M could shut them down, we're going to see an upset here. Right now, Penn State's undefeated, number 3 in the nation, above Ohio State, behind Georgia and Oregon. So this is going to be a fun game to watch, though. But JT, what are your thoughts?
I mean, as far as the focus of the game, you nailed it, man. The battle in the trenches. That Penn State O-line versus that A&M front seven. I'm glad Penn State's finally a top 4 team in the country because I felt all year they're the most underrated team in the nation. Coach Franklin's another one of those guys. This is one of the most well-coached teams in the country. They're disciplined on both sides of the ball. Aller, as long as he's not turning the ball over, Penn State's going to beat anybody. I genuinely think that. I think this team is really good. I expect Penn State to win this game, even, at the 12th man at A&M. I genuinely think Nick Singleton becoming a receiver, the fact that he's just become a receiving back now at, 230 pounds running a 4.30, he's incredible. I'm expecting Penn State to win this game.
Wait, and I'm sorry. I think I have my games mixed up. Hold on.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, I think they're playing Wisconsin, and I think
have Wisconsin.
LSU. Yeah,
I completely skipped that. Yep,
No,
so I'm going to add that.
Good.
I apologize. Excuse me on that one. But yeah, so regardless, though, this would have been a great matchup, but this is not the correct matchup. So I apologize here. So it's Penn State number 3 at Wisconsin here, though. So we're going to.
Oh, yeah, they're going to keep them alive, too. That's going to be. I mean, Wisconsin's tough, though, man. They're another, they play good defense. They control the ball. But I love Penn State. I've been high on them all year. Part of my gut says they're going to end up in at least the national semifinal. Like they're for sure one of the top 4 teams in the country, just because of how disciplined they are. Abdul Carter's one of my favorite defensive players in the country. I think what's his name? Tony Rojas as well, another stud at linebacker for Penn State. They're good, man. Both sides of the ball. I really think that Franklin deserves some Coach of the Year accolades at this point because he's just so consistent, man. They don't get the same media coverage that Michigan or Ohio State or some of these other, Big Ten teams get. And and every year in and year out, Penn State's right there, I really like their program right now. I think they've got that in the bag.
For sure. And for those that don't know, I do my prospect post article every Wednesday. It drops now on the FF Universe, fantasyfootballuniverse.com, as you talk about Penn State and Wisconsin, because Wisconsin actually has a linebacker that transferred from Arkansas, and Jaheim Thomas. So I know I was talking about A&M's front seven, but Jaheim Thomas can make the plays. They also have Hunter Waller, who in my eyes will be a top safety in the draft this year, as a safety there for him in Wisconsin. So they have a nice defense there, but as you mentioned, Penn State's just rolling on all cylinders. But yeah, they're playing Wisconsin. My bad, I got the games confused. The next game we'll talk about will be with A&M. But Spencer, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, no, I agree. Aller he's a frustrating quarterback to watch because I just want them to open the playbook up. But again, JJ McCarthy type of player for me, where he does everything you need at the college level. He has all the traits to elevate. If he goes on a playoff run this year, I see the NFL valuing that. I don't think he's quite as physically gifted as JJ McCarthy is. Maybe like a second round pick. But the real weapon on this team and Tyler Warren is, I mean, the tight end has been killing you in NFL fantasy this year. You've been dying, you've been hoping for points. Nobody is playing well. Tyler Warren might be one of the saviors coming in next year. He's looked so good. He had over 200 yards a week ago. Like tight ends don't do that at the college level. They just don't. And he's balling out. So
they don't have much at wide receiver right now. So Warren's he's basically like Loveland, where he's their de facto number one right now.
Yeah, he's essential for them.
Mm-hmm.
And Singleton, as you mentioned, I mean, he's 6'2", 235 pounds. He's got the highest clock speed. He's ran 23 miles an hour in pads.
Yep.
And he's looked shifty and elusive this year. My big knock on him was that he's kind of you give the ball to him and he's going to run straight. He can't move left and right. He can't make a guy miss. He can't make a miss in open field, never mind a telephone booth. But this year he's looked, it's still not a strong part of his game, but he's looked much, much better. I think that he could be a first-round running back. Next year's running backs are going to feed families for generations, honestly. It's generational wealth at running back. Wisconsin just doesn't have much. They have good individual players, especially on defense, but it hasn't come together this year.
Right now, just because you brought up the name, Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland, who are you taking next year?
Tyler Warren, no hesitation. Every time I watch Loveland play, I'm like, this is an okay tight end, but I don't see the special tight end. I just don't. Maybe fair. I'm mistaken on that, but
JT, thoughts?
I don't see any weaknesses in Loveland's game. I like both of these guys, but I think Loveland, not that he's excels or he's the best at anything, but I just think he doesn't have any weaknesses. I think he's a plug and play day one starter in the NFL, and you don't see that often at the tight end position. So I like Loveland a lot. I think he's the pretty clear tight end one here. I mean, your other boy too. So you got Warren and Loveland. But what about Fannin? Yeah, man.
I was about to ask. I'll take Fannin over both of them.
It depends on the draft stock, and honestly, like Fannin, I love Fannin, but I'm a little worried about his weight. I think he's weighing in like 230 right now. He looks a lot bigger than that, but that's his listed weight. So if he's coming in at 230, NFL's gonna not want him on there. He's not really gonna block well. Yeah. So he's an offensive weapon. That's what he is first, but he's not quite the player that like Brock Bowers is. So he's not gonna slide into the slot right away. So I'm a little worried about the tweener status, but if he can come in combine even just 240, maybe show off on the bench a little, put up like 15 reps, then I'm comfortable moving him above Loveland. Right now they're about tied, and Warren is my one.
Fair. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the tight end plays out. That's always fun to watch. I expect one to go in the first round, and then you're going to see a couple in day two, whether it be Warren and Fannin, Loveland, and then probably someone else like a Luke Lachey, even though he's been out and stuff like that too. But it'll be interesting to see what they go. But next matchup, as we mentioned, the mistake there, LSU number 8 at Texas A&M. So this is the true A&M matchup, back to back. So that's where I got them confused here. But this is going to be something that is interesting to watch. I mean, LSU, talk about the quarterback class being in a slew right now. Gary Meismeyer comes out, he potentially could be the QB1 of the class, just the way he looks at delivering the ball, the way others have struggled. He's looking really great. He might, stay another year. Kyron Lacey as their wide receiver, looking phenomenal as well. I think he's definitely entering, and he's someone that could be a day 2 pick. I don't see him as a first-round prospect quite yet, but definitely a day 2. But more importantly, their defense is really kind of look better without Perkins. It's looked like this came around. They're not having to move, focus about Perkins and put him out. He had a season-ending injury. And then they have a solid freshman running back in Caden Durham, who's looking great. He's actually, I feel – he makes the offense better alone because they have a running game. Like they had a struggle without trying to get a consistent runner. Durham is that consistent runner. I know we talked about Texas A&M's front seven, their quarterback issues as well. I know they have Wyman, they have trying to blank here, Michaels,
Marshall Reed.
Marshawn Reed.
Marshall,
Michaels is
Marshall
Oklahoma.
Reed, freshman, he's good.
So Marshawn Reed there as well. Le'Veon Moss has looked great, you know. So this is gonna be a fun matchup. SEC always fun. It's at College Station, so that could be a huge tell. But Spencer, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I know we've gone back and forth in chat on Nussmeier and whether he's this year or next year. And I think he would come out this year just because of how up and down this quarterback class is, and he would be he's physically gifted. Team needs a quarterback, like the Giants in round 2. So many other needs, but he's the type of quarterback that could elevate our team. But we need better talent, and we're probably not going to be picking, in the Cam Ward range. So he could make his money and start right away if he comes out this year, whereas next year you got a lot more quarterbacks to contend with who are thought of higher.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, Kyron Lacey was my boy. I think you're probably right. Day 2, he hasn't quite refined the route running as much, and the attitude. He's very George Pickens-like with how he plays in every facet of the game. So I think he's an interesting player, but he might be up and down. Aaron Anderson has really popped off. I mean, he's only 5'9", maybe 165 if you put weights on him. But he's fast. He's quick. He kind of fits. He reminds me a lot of like Tutu Atwell, but a little bit more physically gifted than Tutu in the short area quickness. And the Mason Taylor is great for LSU. I mean, they just have a lot going on. And as you said, Kid Durham is an absolute baller. He definitely has elevated this offense. And A&M is a good team, obviously 6-1, but I don't think they have the quarterback play to keep up with LSU. Marcel Reed I think it's Marcel Reed.
Yeah, Marcel. Yeah.
Marcel Reed. He's looked good. Wegman has looked bad. So Reed brings that dual threat dynamic to that team in a way that keeps them in games. -1 at Texas Station. Yeah, I think LSU wins this one. I think they're just a slightly better football team, even on the road in a tough place to play. I think LSU pulls it out.
JT.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, A&M's front seven is tough. LSU, Caden Durham's a beast. LSU's been missing a real running game for 2 years now, so that's a blessing for them. You know how much I love Nussmeier. Me and your boy Andy Pham have been on the Nussmeier train for 2 years now, so that's one of my guys. CJ Daniels might return today, which would be a big boost for the LSU passing game. Nussmeier, if he does decide to come out this year, I think he's the QB3 at worst. He's a top 3 QB in this class. He throws, him and Shedeur throw the prettiest ball in the nation, in my opinion. They've got the, as far as just pure precision passing, it's the prettiest ball in the country. I expect LSU to win this handily, even in College Station. I just think, week after week, they're looking better and better. Willie Weeks, the linebacker for LSU, has really looked awesome the last couple weeks, especially since Perkins went down. He's kind of stepped into that leadership role on the defense. I'm expecting LSU to win this one pretty handily.
Shout out Texas athletes for Durham from Duncanville, who they got some prospects coming out there as well. This will be a huge matchup for them. A&M upsets. I mean, this is going to be the next few weeks for the SEC is going to get crazy because loss every win matters now, right? You can't afford a loss to get out the playoffs. So A&M, they win this, they jump into the top 12 where LSU may fall out, and that could be, how they get into the playoffs there as well. But definitely some interesting matchups here. It does help being at home when you're against LSU. I agree with you, Spencer. I think, especially if they win out, Nussmeier has to come into the draft. I don't think there's a reason why he stays and competes with next year's class. You have A&M, then you have Bama, Florida, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma. 3 of those games are at home. So if they can win out, I think why stay? Because I think he just puts himself in a first-round talent, where next year you're competing against Nico, Arch, some of the top prospects there, and potentially other ones as well, that it's going to be huge. Where here, I think he can be that unquestioned one if he continues to ball the way he is. So it'll be fun to watch him as they progress there. Next one, another Big 12 matchup. Kansas at Kansas State, number 16. And Big 12, I mean, Kansas is looking horrible. I think they only have like 2 wins or something. But they just don't look good at all, which is pretty bad. However, their running back looks really good in Devin Neal. But on the flip side, Kansas State has a really good running back in DJ Giddens. This is going to be a battle on which running back can, go through the holes quicker, which running back can, put the points on the board and bring their team down and move the chains. This is going to be a fun game to watch in that regards on what they can do. Kansas State has a good secondary as well. So if Devin Neal goes out there and balls, I mean, I say that, but he's had 100-yard rushes and they still lose. So, I mean, Kansas State should win this one. They're 6-1 right now. They're dominating all courses here. Again, talk about Big 12. The Big 12 is kind of up for grabs, even with BYU undefeated. So it can still happen. You still have Colorado coming, even though they're not ranked. They can, or they might be ranked now. They might be in the top 20. But they, you can have them come in as well. But I think Kansas State should handle this. Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens is going to be too much for the Kansas defense there. But either way, fun running backs. You talked about, Spencer, earlier that this running back feeds class or generations. I agree. But what are y'all's thoughts on this game? JT, we'll start with you.
I mean, the last couple of weeks, Kansas's offense has looked better. Jalen Daniels, especially, has looked like the guy from 2 years ago that I thought he was going to be. He's really efficient as a passer. When he's on, he's like an 80% completion guy. He's just sharp. And the last 2 weeks, he has been. So I'm not expecting Kansas to win this game by any means. I think K-State rolls here. But Kansas can put up some points if Daniels is sharp. Love both running backs. Giddens is the truth. I also think Kansas State has a really good tight end room. I think they have 2 tight ends. That one of them, Oakley, something like that. And then maybe that's both of their names. But I know they have 2 really good tight ends that I like as well. So yeah, I think KSU rolls here. That Avery Johnson Giddens, backfield combo is just hard to defend against.
Spencer, thoughts?
Yeah, I honestly I think Kansas State has the same offense that Kansas has, but better. They have the dual threat quarterback in Avery Johnson versus Jalen Daniels, but I mean Avery Johnson's looked like he's stepping into his own. He's been really good. Jalen Daniels has looked good these last 2 weeks, but Kansas they haven't been good. Devin Neal I think he made a mistake coming back. I think he would have been good to come out last year and go to the NFL. Not that he's played poorly, he's played very well, but with how bad Kansas has played and how good this class is, I think he's lost some steam, whereas last year he would have been probably a day 2 guy. And Giddens, I mean, you can't say enough good things. He's been explosive. He's popping off. He's the best player on the field every time he's on the field. So, I'm really excited to kind of see him ball out. It's going to be a battle of running with the quarterbacks and with the running backs. No real wide receivers to talk about on either side. And the defenses are strong on Kansas State side, not on Kansas side. So I think I think Avery Johnson has a good day. I think Giddens has a great day. And Devin Neal, maybe he gets involved in the passing game today, but it's going to be hard for Kansas to keep running all day, I think.
I have Neal and Giddens both as top 10 backs. Devin Neal, I think about it, he's my RB4. I'm putting Singleton above him. I did have an RB3 for a while, but Singleton will be him now. And then I have DJ Giddens as my RB8, I believe. Where do y'all have these guys? Are they 2 top 10 backs, or what do y'all think about them?
I go back and forth. I have Giddens in my top 10. I think he's around 9. Devin Neal, I want to have him higher, but he's stuck around like 11, 12 for me. I just, I can't move him. And it really isn't an indictment of him. It's just how good this class is. Mm-hmm. But I'm really high. As I said, like Dylan Sampson is a guy that I'm really, really high on. Trevor Etienne is rising up in this class a little bit for me. Mm-hmm. So there's just so many names. There's just so many names.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're both top 10 backs in this class. Like y'all said, Neal's just proven he's one of those guys who we know just watching last year. This year on a bad offense, he still looked good. Giddens is I have him in, I think, every single C2C we're in. Like, that's one of my guys. So, love Giddens. I think he's a stud. Man, Nick Singleton's my guy of this whole class. I'm fully bought in. there's a good chance by draft season he's my RB1 in the class over Jeanty. I don't care. Not because I think Jeanty's not great. I'm just big. And you give me a 4'3" guy that weighs 230 pounds and can, pass block. He's a good receiver. He's obviously a little more shifty than he was, in year 1 and 2. I'm all in on Nick Singleton, man. I think he's going to be an NFL stud.
He's a pure runner. I think he's Chubb 2.0. So if he goes to Cleveland, I mean, you're just dialing him back in there.
He's a good receiver now too. They're getting him involved in the passing game, at least two or three, and he's running a lot of those angle routes and stuff like that. So don't sleep on that part of his game, man. He's good.
Oh yeah, no, he's gonna be great. I mean, you talk about Creighton too. I think he knows that competition is there, which just elevates him. Right now, just fares up. Giddens is actually my RB6 right now. So I have Junkins, Jeanty, Singleton, Neal, Hampton, Giddens right now. So next one though, let's go into this final game here. SMU 22 at Duke. SMU favorite minus 11.5. SMU dropped some. They have lost as well. They lost RJ Maryland. I'm pretty sure he's out for the season, who was their leading receiver. RJ Maryland, I think he's one of the more athletic tight ends in this class. He might end up staying another year just because he got injured now. However, if he does go, I think he's someone to watch. I love this kid's receiving skills, what he could do. He could block downfield as well. He's a solid blocker down the field for your running backs. Definitely love him. So that's going to hurt SMU. Duke has had their ups and downs, right? They looked really good. Then they lost some. Malik Murphy does look great, right? They've only lost one match. He was looking fantastic earlier on. Now 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They really, their passing game isn't necessarily crazy or anything. It's really Malik Murphy just finding his guys and having the arm. But SMU made a change at quarterback, right? They have Kevin Jennings there now instead of Preston Stone. That was a huge thing when they brought in Jennings. He's been we talked about Avery Johnson stepping into it, or Marshall Reed stepping in as well. He's changed the game, the way the offense is played, a little bit more dynamic, a little more elusive as a playmaker, making those things happen. But what are y'all's thoughts on this game? Spencer, I'll let you start since we know JT's a Duke fan here.
No, I mean, Duke has played, they played well, but they haven't really played tough teams. Whereas SMU, I think their only loss this year is against BYU, which looked really bad at the time. But obviously now we're looking at that and we're like, well, BYU was a legit team. It wasn't a bad loss at all. I mean, that was a good team they were playing. Rashard Smith has really carried the load for this team, and as you said, Jennings has stepped in and been awesome. So I think this SMU team is the real deal. I'm a little worried about losing RJ Maryland, but I think they work through spreading the ball out on the passing side and then running through Rashard Smith, who's been great. I don't think that there's a ton of NFL, if any NFL, type of potential there, but he could surprise. I mean, he's balling out, so. I think they win this one handily. Duke, Malik Murphy just doesn't have it. I really liked him, and he's shown that I was wrong. Shouldn't have liked him that much. So now I'll let Duke's #1 fan take it away.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, JT?
Honestly, I think this game's going to come down to whether or not Malik Murphy can keep Duke in the game early, because SMU, they're just such a fast-paced offense that I think the Duke defense will gas in the second half. So is Malik Murphy going to be able to keep Duke in the game early? That'll kind of be whether, the tail of the tape of whether or not this game's close. I think SMU rolls, though. Not just because I dislike Duke. I just think SMU, the fast-paced offense, they're just a better coach team, so I think they roll here.
Yeah, I agree. SMU, you mentioned lost to BYU early on, only by 3 though. And then this week against Duke, but next week they have Pittsburgh as well. So that's going to be huge for them to go against Pittsburgh. Eli Holston's out there balling in Pittsburgh right now, one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch right now in the game. I mean, he didn't have to do much this past week. The defense shut him out. I think had 3 pick sixes to defense. So that was really huge against Syracuse, against Colin McCord, who had been balling too. 5 interceptions was just horrible. So this game will be nice, SMU, see what they have without RJ Maryland, because outside of that, receiving room, it's kind of been tough for them. So this is going to be big on who steps up. That's going to be how Duke can save themselves and, come out and just get this victory. But I do think SMU can win. They have some solid defense as well. Duke looks good, but they just don't look great. They're beatable is the thing. Like you mentioned, who they played hasn't been anyone too crazy or anything like that. So a lot of things to tell here, but I'm going to take SMU in this one here. That wraps up the game. Spencer, I know you got a dip here in a second, but I do want to ask y'all. I'm curious to just know who right now is your Heisman favorite. Jeanty had phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking this guy's game, but on the calendar, the question is, what is he doing against these top-ranked teams or just top-ranked teams? Right? Oregon, he dominated against Oregon, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. That Oregon defense, he's not doing that against Oregon defense right now. I don't think he's putting up 3 touchdowns, 192 yards. He can get over 100. That's fine, but I don't think he's doing that great that he did in week 2. This Friday, he played UNLV, arguably the toughest defense he's played all week, all year. 3.9 yards per carry, 128 yards off 33 attempts. So they were using him and making it happen, but it kind of showed like, okay, maybe he's against these tougher teams. Is he as dominant? We don't know. So I know that could be a Heisman favorite for people, but I'm just curious what are y'all's thoughts? Who is the Heisman favorite right now for y'all? JT, I'll start with you.
I mean, I think we kind of touched on it last week too, but as long as Jeanty's threatening the Barry Sanders single season record, I think he needs to be the favorite. If he doesn't break that, that's where it could get interesting because Travis Hunter, he's that dude, man. He plays both sides of the ball. It's hard to deny the impact he has on a game-to-game basis. But again, if Jeanty breaks the record, you have to give him the trophy. Yeah, there's no debating that.
Road Just Travels agrees here. He says Austin Jeanty 100%. Assuming that's 100%. Spencer, what are your thoughts? Heisman favorite?
Yeah, I still think Jeanty has it. I mean, he's just on pace to put up one of the most. I mean, it's video game numbers. At least the way I play video games. I know some people put up, but I'm not that good. So no, I mean, he's putting up video game numbers. I know this last week was tougher. But I think that comes back to, like, again, watching the tape. He invites contact when maybe he doesn't need to, and I think against a tougher defense, he needs to learn you can not do that. Sure. He's a 205, 210 pounds. He's not this huge guy. So what he's doing is crazy, though. Travis Hunter, I know he's doing it on both sides of the ball. He's doing it great, but that quote he had where, like, well, he's got 95 carries. What if I had 95 catches? And, like, you stat it out, he still has less yards.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I think that highlights just how crazy a season that Jeanty's had. Is that, even if, you take Travis Hunter's words and you say, well, if you give me better stats that I didn't have, then how I would be comparable. Like, it's not there. I think the one guy who can challenge is Cam Ward. I think the one guy right now who can really step up and actually challenge him, unless we have a collapse from Jeanty. This 3.9 yards per carry holds up. I don't see it doing that. I think it was just a blip of a game on a Friday night. I think Cam Ward, if he keeps balling and keeps winning and pushes Miami into national title conversation, I mean, that stuff plays well. That narrative plays well, even if he breaks the record. I think it's going to be a conversation because it's a quarterback's award to lose.
Just clear, top 3 right now: Jeanty, Hunter, Ward. Would we agree with that?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, you brought up Cam Ward. If he takes him to the national title, that's quarterback award, right? Just like MVP, it's quarterback award. So if he does that, possible. Then that raised the question, though. If Dylan Gabriel does the same thing, we know how precise Dylan Gabriel in his passes, leading the nation, right, in accuracy. Does that elevate him to potential Heisman then if he ends up taking Oregon to the national championship and keeps up this accuracy as well?
I think it's different there, because if Oregon goes to the Natty, it's going to have a lot to do with their defense, their running game. There's a lot of other reasons, whereas if Cam Ward leads Miami to the national title, he's probably throwing 4 or 5 touchdowns every game because he has to. So the numbers will look very different, and how they got there is different. Yeah. That's where I think you give the edge to Ward over a guy like Gabriel.
Yeah,
There.
I think Ward has the edge there, and I think Lanning wins Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
if he hasn't already kind of won that status, he's really what's making Oregon great. He's
Yeah.
getting all that time to gel together, but he's protecting Gabriel and his flaws right now.
Tony Franklin's still my coach of the year. I'm still voting. Penn State, man, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna play each other, I do believe. I think we have them. No, we don't. It'd be a Big 12 championship or a Big 10. And then last question though, and then we'll get out of here. Hunter then with Travis Hunter, what does he need to do to jump Jeanty and win the Heisman there?
I think he's got to play. He needs quarterbacks to start targeting him on corner, and he needs to get some picks.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
He's playing lockdown defense right now, but I think that there's questions about the guys he's covering when he's playing corner, and how much that has to do with it, and then B, like he's playing well on offense. He's a good wide receiver, but he's being outproduced by a lot of other wide receivers. So he either needs to start stepping up and be like a top 5, top 3 type of production-wise wide receiver in college football, or he needs to start getting some picks and taking them to the house.
Yeah.
He's made an impact on both sides of the ball. He's good. He's top 15 on both sides, which is incredible. I'm not trying to take away from that, but it's a bit like the baseball debate, like Shohei Ohtani versus Aaron Judge for MVP. Like Shohei's having a good season on both sides, but Aaron Judge was on pace to break Barry Bonds' records. At a certain point, one thing is just a little bit more historical. The two-way player is great, but if you're not making an elite level impact on at least one side, I don't see how you can win, the Heisman Award here.
Okay. It's going to be tough for Hunter looking at who he plays. I mean, they have Cincinnati this week. Again, they're not ranked. Then at Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas, Oklahoma State. So it's like there's not really any receivers that it's like even if you shut them down as a corner, it's like, okay, awesome. Like you should do it, right?
Yeah.
So and as far as the receiving end, these defenses aren't great. Cincinnati's 5-2 also, so it should be a good game. But it's like even if you're doing it, I mean, you can argue Boise State's not playing top defenses either. But again, it's not like you're doing it all, right? So I mean that could be it. But any thoughts specifically, different JT on what he can do to win?
No, I mean, I think it's fairly similar. You want to see a couple of those Trey Harris type offensive games where Hunter has, 12 catches, 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. You want to see a pick 6 or 2. I'd love to see a couple of the Peanut Tillman punch outs from behind on just those types of plays where it's like when you're watching with your eye, it's like, okay, that's the best player on the field like what you were saying about Giddens earlier, Spencer. You want to be able to look at it and every time Hunter's on the field, say that's the best player on the field, and that's just where I think, obviously, like we said, he's making an impact, but those big game-changing plays, you just, you haven't seen on a consistent week-to-week basis, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but you just want to see more of those.
Fair. Love it. Spencer, like I said, I know you got some things you got to do here, but we wrapped it up right at the hour and a half. Kickoff is about to start. If you're in your C2C, CFF leagues, hopefully you got your lineups checked. Big games. This is, again, going down the stretch. Every loss, every win matters now because the college football playoffs is right around the corner and 12 teams get in this year. So continue to watch college football. These are the future prospects that we're going to be drafting in our rookie drafts coming up. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe to the Fantasy Football Universe so you know when we're going live tomorrow, an hour before kickoff, the start shit show to answer all your questions regarding NFL and what you can do. Guys, anything you want to say to the FF Universe?
Yeah, just, stay tuned. It's going to be a good week of games today. Catch that starts at convo going on with her NFL. It's always great advice. I'll answer all your questions, which is good because all the injuries and bye weeks, you're going to have a lot of questions. So make sure to catch that. I appreciate you having me on. I got to run to a wedding, get myself looking a little dapper.
There you go.
Right now I'm not in wedding attire, so
for sure.
the PC sweatshirt won't play. So, I really appreciate you. Great to talk to you guys. Good to see you too, JT. It's been a minute. So, we'll have more stuff. We're going to probably be doing a mock draft at some point soon. For the 25 class with landing spots and rounds and teams. So, that should be fun coming up. So stay tuned. I appreciate you guys. I'm going to head out, make sure I get changed, and my girlfriend doesn't kill me for not putting in a tire on time.
Yeah,
I'll
bro,
see you
go
guys.
get that. Have fun.
Yeah, much love, Spencer.
JTA, any last words there while he had to dip out there?
I mean, really, I am curious, from the FF universe, what their thoughts are on that C2C trade that me and Spencer did last week. So it was I sent Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame running back, and Dylan Sampson, Tennessee running back, to Spencer for 2 NFL rostered players in Ramondre Stevenson and Sam Laporta. So curious to see the FFU's thoughts on that, because that is, obviously 2 different priorities on those sides of the trade. But
So
yeah,
hold
I'm in
on.
win now mode on the NFL side. So
Hold on. Say that trade. I'm gonna put it in the comments so I can see it too.
I got Ramondre and Sam Laporta, and I gave up Jeremiah Love and Dylan Sampson.
Laporta for.
And remember, this has been the Devy Superstar, so it's a 2 tight end start. We're starting 2 tight ends on the NFL side. Okay. So that was a big selling point for me targeting Laporta.
Okay, so Ramondre and Laporta for Jeremiah Love and Sampson. I like Sampson over Ramondre. Jeremiah Love, I personally still want to see a little bit more. I like his game, but I know you're a heavy fan of him.
Laporta, he's my RB2 of next year's of the 26 class. Right now, he's my RB2.
Jeremiah Love?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think you bought in to running backs that you enjoy, right? Because you got them. And I think it was a good time to sell Laporta. I mean, we'll see, right? Because it'll be interesting to see what Jameson Williams, I think he's on a 2-game suspension.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting because Laporta hasn't been getting the targets there. But at the same time, I think what we see with Jameson Williams shows Laporta was only a factor because Williams wasn't there, right? So now with that, I think you sold high and sold good on him because you got to.
I got other way around. I sold Love and Sampson too.
Oh, you sold Love and Sampson.
Yeah. I got the NFL talent. Yeah.
Okay. So, so right now, then on the flip side, you bought into Laporta when he's gonna have a big target share. But I think again, I feel when Jameson Williams is on the field, that hurts him because he now comes from de facto 3, if you want, starting Gibbs as the second target there for him outside of Amon Ra, and now you have Williams. So then he goes to the 4. Williams is there. We saw he has the top talent there, so I get that. So you're hoping that comes back, but I think that could bite you. Ramondre, man, maybe it's different with May in there. I think that's gonna be huge. What he can do. I haven't been that satisfied with Ramondre as much as I was last year. Again, but then it's always interesting selling your college assets because I think Sampson is going to move some mountains. I think he's going to rise boards the more and more we see of him and what he's doing with Tennessee. And Love, as I said, I want to see more of him. If he's your RB2, next year, that's fantastic. But with these, if you bought into win now, it makes sense. But I think you lost some valued pieces of the future, which is part of the dynasty, though, right? If you bought into win now, it's like, how can you make the trades to not necessarily hurt that future of yours? So we'll see on how it plays out. Sampson right now, I think, has worked his way into a day 2. He might still be a day 3 prospect. And Love, we just need to see it next year. Next year's class is a lot weaker, though, than this year. So that's going to be huge for him because he can arguably jump into, as you have RB2, he could be maybe the 1. Who knows? It depends on who steps back. So my eyes, I think I favor the Love and Sampson side, but I get why you did it on the NFL side. Again, starting 2 tight ends, it makes sense.
So my logic, obviously, that's starting 2 tight ends. I now have Pitts and Laporta, so I feel really good about that going forward. Yeah. In the 2 tight end league, Ramondre, I'm a love Drake May. I really like the way he's opened up that offense, and I expect the running game to be opened up more because of the way Drake May moves the ball. Mm-hmm. Dylan Sampson's my RB5 in this class, so I like him a lot. He's a top 5 RB to me, and then Love, like I said, is RB2 next year. So I know that I sold some running back assets, but I feel really comfortable with this trade, especially with the depth at running back I had on the college side. I have, DJ Giddens, I have Nick Singleton. So I have a couple other guys there that I feel good about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's fun, man. I love those types of trades where it's 2 teams that are prioritizing differently, and you're able to find value for both of you.
And that's the beauty. How's it going, Jamie? Yeah, man. Thanks for joining in. I think we're doing our roundtable a little bit later, but then, as you know, our start should show tomorrow as well, Jamie. So glad you joined though when you did. With this one. here, this is good, but I agree. This is why I love C2C because it adds another avenue, another layer to strategizing where, yeah, you can plan for draft picks, but now it's like, all right, we're just going after the players. It's no longer getting these. We still have a rookie draft. Don't get me wrong. It's people that aren't in your C2C leagues, but it's only 2 rounds compared to our 3 or 4 or whatever you may have in your rookie drafts. And now on the C2C side, you have these guys that play an impact. And now it's like, okay, how is their offense using them on the field there? What are they doing on the field? And you can do trades like this where it's like, hey, I'm going to go in and buy these NFL assets now. I'll trade you these guys that are aspiring college assets that have pro potential. But at the same time, we've seen it time and time again. College players go pro and then they do nothing, right? They're just bad, right? So it's just who knows? Maybe this trade bites you. And it's like, man, maybe Dylan Sampson and Jeremiah Love are the best backs we've seen in the NFL since, I don't know, since Gibbs and Bijan, right? Maybe they just come out and dominate. And vice versa, though, maybe Ramondre, as you said, may opens up that offense and Laporta starts getting more involved, so things can happen there. But no, this is what C2C is about. This is why everyone should play C2C because you get college rosters and NFL rosters, so it just adds another layer to it and just makes it more exciting. That's why we do the Devy GameDay show because we're watching these guys. We have them on our rosters, and we want to see, okay, how can I maneuver around to craft the perfect NFL team because the NFL team is a championship you want. The C2C team is just like our extended taxi, except we get points for them too. So love it. Good trade, man. I love those type of trades, though, as well. My pro side is in flux right now, so I need to figure out what I'm doing there with them. But man, I appreciate you coming on as always a pleasure. Again, for the fantasy football universe, for my guys, Jesse, Jeremy, Aaron, all of us, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and until next time, we will see y'all later. Peace.